Despite the huge controversy that surrounded Ryan Garcia in his last fight against Devin Haney, his career somehow looks brighter than ever before. With that dominant performance, he's turned the tide in how some people saw him just a year prior, as many felt he was a fighter that may never reach his potential, as he was grappling with issues outside the ring, alongside a potential mental health crisis. However, he seems to have become the A-side once again, despite the failed drug test. This shows just how quickly one fight can change everything. However, we cannot look past his opponent, as this could very well be Rolly Romero's chance to make that change in his career. And getting a victory over Ryan is a big step towards that. While this fight may not be for a title, at this stage every fight matters. These two have already met face to face before, but not underneath the bright lights of Vegas or Madison Square Garden. Instead, they went toe to toe in sparring in their younger years, which looked like a fiery affair, even back then. And if that footage is anything to go by, we could get a great fight. But as always, it's important to take a look at the skills and tactics to see who will come out on top and solidify their status in the boxing hierarchy. At first glance, it may seem as if Ryan is only a one-trick pony, completely relying on his left hook to get the job done, as some fighters have suggested.
He's only dangerous with the hook, nothing else. He's dangerous just with that hook, that's it.
But this isn't simply the case, and a lot more goes into his style than just this hook alone. So let's cover all the other skill sets first and see how they could disrupt Rolly. Before we talk about his signature weapon, we actually need to talk about what helps set it up first. That of course is his jab. The first thing you might notice about it is that it's very fast, but it actually often doesn't land on the target and is used more so as a tool to distract the opponent and bring their guard tighter. What Ryan likes to do is often, once his competitors protect the front of their face, will quickly go around the guard with the left hook, while throwing it in quick succession as well. A quick jab or a feint to distract them can tighten it just enough and help him to immediately throw the left hook around the side. And this tactic has worked very well against the likes of Fortuna, Duno and Devin Haney. He will also combine pinning with his jab. For example, as he's jabbing, he will leave his lead hand out there just a little bit longer to pin the opponent in place, so they can't move forward. This is especially effective against shorter opponents who are trying to fight him on the inside. He will also use this offensively by pinning to block their view, and then once again out of nowhere, he'll throw the wide rear hook or left hook round the guard.
All you're gonna get.
For a straight and cross, it's actually quite similar to the jab, as he just shoots it out very quickly with no real power behind it. In my opinion, the real main intention of his straight is to set up the left hook. As he throws the straight across, he's already setting up the left hook to be thrown, or even as a way to bait the opponent to come in and attack him. Now in my opinion, these long-range weapons will prove vital against someone like Rolly. Romero often doesn't get his head off the center line, and when he does try, he's pretty slow at it, and the fast pace at which Ryan throws his jabs and straights is a really good chance in stopping Rolly in his tracks. Romero also has a tendency of walking in straight lines when on the attack, so this pinning and framing technique of Ryan could be quite effective, as Rolly isn't going to be using footwork to come in from a different angle. Rolly also overcommits with too many of his punches, as he looks to throw bombs half the time, which in my opinion could also allow Ryan to land on him first, because he tends to throw straight down the middle. In recent fights, Ryan has also shown a wider array of footwork, and this has been his go-to form of defense rather than head movement or a tight guard, as we saw him use under Eddie Reynoso when he was part of Team Canelo, whereas his new trainer Derek James seems to be making him move a lot more. And there's no denying his lateral movement constantly around the ring has improved in my opinion, and we saw this to great effect against Duarte and even in the opening rounds against Devin Haney, barely allowing any moments to be stuck in the corners or ropes, making Duarte and Haney chase him constantly while not cutting off the ring properly against him.
There's nothing wrong boxing and moving, but you gotta be sticking and moving, just not moving laterally without punching.
Ryan also often steps back as a form of defense. As he's stepping back, he'll post out his lead hand to stop the opponent from continuing to press him, but it also poses risk in terms of getting caught out as well, while the way in which he goes about his footwork is to help set up his check hook counter, especially as opponents rush towards him, but I'll discuss in detail very soon. Now speaking about Romero's footwork, it isn't really the best. He tends to be quite flat-footed for the most part, and just tends to stay in the same place with his stance and guard, and in my opinion, he doesn't really know how to cut off the ring that well. This is especially going to be difficult for him against Garcia, as Ryan for me has shown he's able to constantly move laterally and have his opponents chase him throughout the entirety of the ring, and the flat-footedness and the big steps Rolly takes to reach his opponent may just be too slow against Ryan, as Garcia will no doubt be looking to dance around the ring. Not only that, but due to his overextending nature in which Rolly throws his punches, he quite often sets himself up to be perfectly counterpunched, and Ryan's step back off the check hook counter could be a key weapon in exposing him. After all, we did see what happened to him against Gervonta Davis.
Seems kind of awkward, but in this fight he's not the one.
There's a big left hook!
Speaking about counters, it's important to talk about the check hook now. The step back I just discussed that he uses helps him set up the perfect counter for the check hook, especially once he has the upper hand in the long range battle with the straights and jabs. The opponents start to get desperate and really try to pressure him, but this is all part of Ryan's plan, as he's carefully baiting them to close the distance. As the opponents finally come forward with an attack, Ryan will simply step back away from range and throw the hook as they come in. Other times, he won't need to step back at all, and simply pull his head just a bit backwards to make the opponent miss their initial punch, which Ryan of course looks to counter. And this was something he would do again and again against Haney's jab. However, Ryan still gets hit by the straight and crosses at times when he uses this type of counter. This is something he can risk if the opponent isn't the biggest puncher. Nevertheless, against someone like Rolly, he'll need to be more mindful. His left hook though is at his best when he starts looping it, and what makes it especially hard to deal with is the constant mix up of where the left hook will actually land, as well as the speed in which he throws it. His hook always starts low and then goes up, and if he's been going up for a while, he'll then start going down towards the body. For whatever reason, the starting position is always the same, so it can be very hard for opponents to read. But not only that, he'll also lunge in with it as he's coming forward to help him quickly break the distance, while allowing the punch to reach the target. What Ryan is also really good at is getting the finish the moment he gets the opponent stunned. He's really good at capitalizing on these moments, often with a rear wide hook. Once he has the competitors on the ropes or even backing them up, he starts to let his hands fly, as he looks to throw the wide rear hooks to get around the guard as they're shelling up, pretty much emptying the entire gas tank just to land a big one. But how will these punches work against Rolly? Well, as discussed already with the check hook, Rolly overextends with his punches, losing balance with his feet, and not only that, his chin is also very exposed when he comes in like this, because he brings the rear hand down real low after throwing. We already got to see how effective Ryan's check hook was against someone like Devin.
Haney, aggressive, get overconfident, big left hand by Garcia, rocks!
So I do suspect this will be problematic for Rolly. Romero is also fond of his Philly shell stance, but if I'm being honest, can't really pull it off at times. His hands tend to be in a lower position, and his defensive reactions while using it just aren't up there with the best. And I feel this will make him open to the looping hooks of Ryan. He may catch the hooks to the body, but then eventually Ryan's going to loop it around upstairs at some point. Furthermore, when things get messy for Rolly, he's not really able to defend himself. We got to see this a lot in his last fight against Pitbull Cruz. The moment he gets stunned, he's not really able to recover well and defend himself, as we saw Cruz was able to break through Rolly's defense with the barrage of hooks. And Ryan, for the most part, is one of the most deadliest finishers in the sport, and I can see Ryan finishing him off if he hurts him even once. However, it would be unfair to say Ryan doesn't have flaws, as he does have a tendency to keep his chin wide open, especially when throwing wild combinations. And this could be dangerous against a heavy hitter like Rolly, as he could get caught in between his own combinations. He also has a bad habit of bringing his rear hand down when stepping back, which obviously was how Luke Campbell knocked him down.
Looks like he wants to.
Left hand, sit!
While we've also seen Ryan get quite shy as well when a lot of punches start to land on him. He'll cower and even turn his entire back to his opponent and no longer look at them. However, in a weird way, it also helps him, as the rules of boxing come to save him, as when in this position, opponents hit him on the back, or even the back of his head, which are obviously illegal shots, giving the ref no choice but to step in and reset them. However, the massive downside to this is if you're constantly doing this, you can't really hit your opponent back with a counterpunch, while you also don't really see the punches coming at you, which could see him get caught out, and it could be a very dangerous game playing this way. Now let's take a look at Rolly Romero, someone who is a heavy hitter with a pretty unconventional style, but let's see what makes Rolly unique on his own. The first thing immediately noticeable about Rolly is just how wide his stance is, and how low a base he maintains. He often prompts his opponents to react with level changes and generates more power by keeping his feet firmly planted on the ground. Against Ryan, who fights very tall, Rolly may want to keep himself lower to make it harder for Garcia to reach his intended targets. The taller stance of Ryan also makes him more open to receiving body shots. However, I'm not going to lie, Rolly isn't too fond of that, but maybe it could be a strategy for this coming fight. The majority of his game plan revolves around using his jab or lead hand to measure the opponent, but what Rolly is really looking for here is for his lead hand to touch the gloves or guard of the opponent. If he feels the lead hand can touch the opponent, then he starts letting go of his right hand. Either that, or you'll check to see if his competitor is constantly reacting to the lead hand before he even throws the backhand. In my opinion, Rolly needs to immediately nullify the use of Ryan's long-range weapons in this fight. While Garcia's jab could be superior, he can at least try to negate the effectiveness of it by also probing with his lead hand. Too many of Ryan's opponents in the past, in my opinion, have continuously let him throw it out, not really giving anything back. And with Rolly often measuring with the lead hand, it could just create some hesitation on Ryan's part, but he will need to be careful not to get countered with the left hook. And one of the best parts of Rolly's style are the fact he has heavy hands, and it's perhaps his greatest asset. While Ryan Garcia resorts to his speed and getting you with a shot you don't see coming, Rolly does the complete opposite. His hands are very heavy, and this has to do with the fact he puts everything into almost every single punch. At most, he does set things up with the jab, but for the rest of his punches, he's just throwing endlessly again and again, looking for something to land. While not really the most technical approach, it has led to him getting 13 KOs with his 16 victories, so you could say it's working for him. This way he does go about throwing punches is almost sort of an intimidation factor for the opponent, as they end up being quite gun shy and not wanting to fire back out of fear of getting hit with something big. Even Gervonta Davis looked hesitant to open up when facing him.
Knows the left hand and had was pawed with it.
Only 22 punches thrown in round one.
But these heavy hands combined with the unconventional angles he throws them in has made him quite a problem, as his punches can come from all over the place. He'll be throwing lunging jabs, or even an uppercut that leads into a lunging jab, gazelle hook, or shifting stances into a southpaw. Because he punches so randomly like this, he can be quite hard to read. Once again, I must stress the nature in which Rolly fights. Things often get messy, and both guys get tangled up in the clinch. And it's actually in these moments we get to see some of the judo background of Rolly, because he will continuously fight within the clinch, as he looks to fight himself out instead of using it as a way for downtime, as he's not relying on the ref to separate him. You'll often see him utilising framing as well, as he uses his arms just to push the opponent just a little bit for him to land his punches in between the space. One of Ryan's biggest flaws recently is the way he starts to cover up when getting hit by big shots. He won't be looking at his opponent any longer and turn his back completely towards them, and this could provide some real openings for Rolly to capitalise on. He can set up his heavy punches through the unconventional angles he throws his punches, something Ryan might not see coming. The thing is, he doesn't even need to hit Ryan cleanly on the face or the body. Once he starts to feel the power, even on the arms or in a range where he can get hit, Ryan will start to look away. And in my opinion, this can help Rolly get even closer and start sitting down his punches, or look to try fighting the inside to make it difficult for Ryan. And from what I've seen, Ryan often never really likes to fight this up close. Rolly can constantly give him trouble here. He may be in for a long night. Another thing about Rolly is that you shouldn't let his unorthodox style mislead you into thinking he's merely a reckless slugger, as he has demonstrated good counterpunching skills, particularly with his straight counter. At times he'll roll with his opponent's punch and then respond with a straight shot, or he'll sometimes catch them with a straight right down the middle, while they're throwing their own combinations or coming into range. For Ryan, he can get over aggressive at times, even excited. He may underestimate the ability for Rolly to counter himself, walking right into a straight counter. Romero's best opportunity to counter Ryan will come when Ryan begins to sense victory and throws those wide rear hooks I was talking about. If Rolly's able to evade at least one of Ryan's hooks and respond with a straight punch, he may just be able to push back Ryan or even hurt him in these moments. Even if this counter doesn't land completely, may very well put Ryan back on the back foot. And as we saw versus Gervonta Davis, Ryan Garcia can get greedy at times.
That left hook,
Rolly may have improved somewhat after his fights with Gervonta and Pitbull Cruz, and overall just sharper with his moves, but he still has some major flaws that I think Ryan is going to exploit, one being the lack of footwork, and due to the really wide stance, it makes it hard for him to move around the ring, and too often he'll be in the direct line of attack of the opponent. Typically people with a wide base who like to sit down on their punches rely more on waist and head movement to dodge punches, since the wider stance makes it easier for you to move your entire upper body. But in my opinion, Rolly's upper body just isn't that good. He's too accustomed to being flat-footed and not being able to move away from the danger, which often keeps his head right in the center line.
You know it's going to be difficult.
And there it is,
Another big glaring issue with his style is just how often he loads up. He pretty much loads up with every single punch for the most part. But there's no denying they're pretty strong. This makes him quite predictable, as he ends up telegraphing the punches as he throws them from too far away. While I also just feel he has a tendency to just put out a guy with one punch. The only thing he really does is measure with the jab so he can start throwing the big haymakers. In my opinion, this could be very dangerous against a guy like Ryan, who is known for getting in between his competitors' punches. Lastly, Rolly just gets so desperate at times when he's trying to land on the opponent, overextending and losing his balance and base, and this makes him very open for counterpunches. And unless he's not done the work, he could just get caught out by Ryan's check hook counter. There's no denying Rolly has heavy hands and unconventional skills that might create problems for Ryan early on. However, I believe Ryan will ultimately secure a dominant victory, likely by finish. Their past sparring sessions are behind them, and while both have improved, Ryan just appears several steps ahead in my opinion, just a wider range of tools. Although his jabs and straight punches aren't his strongest, he will use them to set up Rolly with his powerful left hooks. And I predict Rolly will open himself up out of desperation with wide punches, making him vulnerable to those counters. Rolly though does have a chance though, and it lies in the clinch game or fighting on the inside, as he's proven against other opponents. Ryan prefers not to engage up close, often shelling up or turning his back as I discussed, and this can lead to warnings from the referee. However, Rolly must first overcome Ryan's jab, straight and left hook. Ryan's superior lateral movement as well and footwork will make it hard for Rolly to sit down on his punches and connect cleanly, as he does have a tendency to overextend, leaving himself open to counters. While Romero often loads up with every punch, often just using his lead hand to measure the distance instead of actually throwing decent jabs. We've seen Ryan in the past able to effectively counter against fighters with superior jabs. You just need to look at the Devin Haney fight, which isn't a good sign for Rolly in my opinion. But this fight will likely be entertaining in my opinion still. Ryan's growth outpaces Rolly's development, and although we've seen a more patient side to him ever since his fight with Davis, this likely won't be enough against Ryan. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the fight. Do you think Rolly has a chance to beat Ryan Garcia, or will Ryan get a statement victory in Times Square? I'd love to know. If you enjoyed this, why not check out my other breakdowns from the Times Square event? As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.